Is this thing on? It's been so long. Welcome back. Let me just double check that. Alright, audio sounds good. It's been 2 weeks. It feels so much longer. I didn't stream for a week because I was visiting a friend's wedding, and at the end of that week, I got the good old COVID, so was pretty much bedridden for like a week, so I didn't stream last week either. However, I'm mostly over it. I'm going to be aggressively muting myself anytime I cough or die. But besides the old COVID brain, I should be good to go to just vibe and write some code. So yeah, I guess we can do that. Why don't we start by me jumping back into the game that we're working on, Elixir Emporium. Let me tell you a little bit about it for anybody new joining in, anybody new watching the VODs later, and really just for me to jump back in it as well. I've done a little bit of stuff the past couple days as I've got out of bed, but a lot of it's been in Steam, setting up our Steam page and some of our API stuff. So I'm really just getting back into the code now. Let's see what we've got here. For those of you new, welcome to Elixir Emporium. It is a open world crafting RPG. We are using a lot of different systems that have some fun AI stuff under the hood to kind of augment that system in ways that other games haven't been able to do before, like this tech was around. So it's kind of cool to see the stuff being used in really interesting ways. I'll just go ahead and jump in a world. We can run around. Today we're going to work a little bit on the new player experience. So we are just about ready to have a Steam demo up on Steam, and we want to kind of guide players to check out all these cool new systems. But obviously, as an open world game, it can be a little overwhelming. You just drop in and you're like, all right, what the heck is this? What do I do? There's a lot of systems hidden around. So we just want to make sure that in this short little demo that you play, the player is exposed to all the stuff that they can do. And then we want to kind of set them free and be like, all right, be creative, do whatever you want to do, interact with these systems however. So we'll get into the specific implementation details and what exactly we want to guide them to do in a bit. But I mean, at a really, really high level, since I think just dropping into a world like this, you're going to want something that at least tells you how to move around. Left click to move. You can also left click to interact with stuff. So you have your tool belt here. I guess I'm gonna explain all the stuff, and that'll probably all potentially translate into tutorials later, but why not just go through all we got so far? So you've got your tool belt down here. When you don't have any item in your tool belt, obviously you're going to use your bare hands on stuff, but you can also drag items in. So we've got an axe, maybe a chisel as well. And the cool thing about this game is there are no predefined recipes in the game. So the first time you use your hands on a birch tree, for example, you're going to research that combination. And what that's doing behind the scenes is basically generating the collection recipe and any resulting items from AI, and it's serializing those into the game, so those items now exist in the game. You'll always get those items from this combination. You might get them from other combinations, other ways to harvest as well. A good example of that is if we were to take an axe to our birch tree now, we're going to get birch logs as well. I think that's actually the only recipe in the game that is hard-coded in. Yeah, you actually start with axe on birch logs gives you, or an axe on a birch tree gives you birch logs. But other than that, say you want to use a chisel on a birch tree, I don't know what you'd get there. You might get chipped birch logs or something. But that's all being generated. Chipped birch logs or carved birch wood doesn't exist in the game yet, and now it does. So you have this new item. It gets generated with an item type, a description. Some of them will have attributes like, let's see. Nothing in the debug stuff we start with has attributes, but we'll probably see some later. You might get like plus 5% woodcutting speed or something like that, where the attributes are actually all generated by AI as well. And they aren't factored into the player actions quite yet, but they are factored into the quest system. So if a character in town says like, hey, I need a stronger hammer to be able to smith this new metal I got, and you give them a hammer with whatever attribute that is relevant, so like plus 10 strength or plus 5% blacksmithing, whatever you want to do, like he's going to look at that item as if he was another player and be like, oh, yeah, that attribute makes sense. Thank you for that. And it might solve the quest. You might ask for something else to help with it, and so on. But they look at those attributes. They don't actually do anything for the player right now. And also, if we wanted to use maybe a bucket on a birch tree, maybe we'll get some birch sap or something. But you will gain some experience and some sort of skill every time you research a new recipe, because you're effectively generating all these new items in the game, all these new collection processes you generate the first time you do them. So we're going to have a bit more of a reward each new one you do as well. So lots of fun stuff to do there. The other big system around items is crafting, obviously. And there's a lot of different ways that you can get into that. Hey, Tony, welcome in. Glad to be back. I'm probably going to make it through today. We'll see. But you can collect items however you want in the world that way, but you can also combine them however you want. So if we were to take, I don't know, what would be fun? Some clay and some amber. You combine those. There's no recipe for that. We're creating a recipe. We're creating the actual item that it creates. All that's being done behind the scenes. You get an enchanted figurine, a mystical statuette. Its clay form hugged tightly by amber veins, rumored to bring fortune to its holder, and it's got one of those stats of luck. So if an NPC in town needed to be more lucky or something, that might be a great item to give them. And also that recipe is now saved forever. You can always combine these two items to get this, so now we have two of them. You could maybe combine something else. And again, there's a lot more stuff to create than you'll ever be able to create. So we're gonna reward that discovery of new recipes this way too. Probably through like skill XP or something. But we got some fruit bowl, or a fruit bowl, and it's a clay bowl with some apples in it. That makes sense. So as you combine these items and just create new stuff throughout your playthrough, you're just going to start building up your codex. Your codex is basically all the stuff that you've discovered as an alchemist, all the different ways you can create stuff from combining items. I think we might have... What just happened? Oh, did I not actually drag up an item to combine? Yeah, all the item recipes that you've discovered. Also, all of the interactions with objects that you've discovered. So birch trees are one, but if we run over to, say, this bush, and we'll use our bucket on this bush, we'll get a new interaction there. And you can just kind of, obviously there's a lot of open-endedness here of how you want to create whatever item you want. So the other systems in the game are really revolving around giving you purpose for all these items that you've created. We don't have combat in the game right now. That is something we will probably do eventually, but we want to do in a cool way. But we do have a quest system where you have the start of a like relationship system with each NPC. We've got some other fun like crafting-esque systems for refining the items that you've built. Let's go check those out. But let me show off. Now you have obviously birch tree and bush as two different objects. You've interacted with the birch or the bush with a bucket. So that was the only thing that you discovered. But yeah, this is basically just your notebook of notes. That's combining items. We've also got some skill placeholders right now, which you'll probably level up by using those skills. There's a lot of placeholders in here for now because obviously we don't have a lot of this stuff built in, but I just wanted to kind of plan out the systems we would have. I'm going to jump past that guy because I'm talking about skills, so I'm going to run over to the blacksmith real fast. One of the skills is blacksmithing. Surprise, surprise. Did you think you would get that in a fantasy role-playing RPG? And in that, you can create items. Let's actually do it at the anvil. So this is kind of obviously very rough, but the anvil has a couple purposes. One, you can break down items. So if you want to get back your clay and berries, you can drag that in. I see we have broke this, so maybe we'll fix that later. But that'll deconstruct these items back into the item recipe that it came from. So you'll get back clay and berries, I think it was. But with smithing, you obviously start out at like level 1 in this skill. And it allows you to create some items, say maybe an axe is all you create at level 1. What you're going to do is you're going to bring in a material. I don't know that this will work when we have our arrows flying by. But if we bring in a material and we have the sufficient blacksmithing level, we can now go in and create this specific item. We'll see if that works. We don't have animations on it yet. But we'll use this as a material to create this item. So we would get a cactus axe. So again, that item didn't exist in the game. It's got stats and they kind of make sense with the minus 10% grip comfort. But this item can now be used on objects. It can be used however you want. You can also bring it over to, say, the furnace, and you can use your blacksmithing over here to augment these items with new features or materials. So we've got our cactus axe here. Maybe we want to reinforce it with some aluminum or something. This will give some blacksmith experience or something and unlock more of those recipes of items you can create. Again, we don't have any animation here, so we'll see what we get. We got an aluminum cactus axe, so we did away with that uncomfortable holding stat that I think it had. We got a little bit more durability on it and made it light. So there's a lot of different ways to refine your items over here. And I think it's really cool to go over and basically create these items that you want. So if you wanted to give somebody a buckler that is made out of brick, somebody needs a really heavy shield or something, we'll see what we get. This is so sick. Can't wait to get it up on Steam. There's so many ways we can go with this. I like how the crafting systems can define different modes of crafting. Yeah, so let me take a look at this item we got real fast, but we got a brick buckler, so that could be useful for someone. But what I think is going to be cool, especially, is when we can get our custom workstations in, which aren't in quite yet, But the way that these work are basically just they define some item slots that you can drag items into, and then they have a prompt that uses the data in those slots however it wants. So this prompt is basically like you are a blacksmith, you're going to change the item in this slot using this material, blah, blah, blah. What do you get? It spits out a JSON blob of a new item. And all that, I think we can generate those prompts based on the like station name. So if I were to hypothetically create a new workstation as a player of like, what's this bucket called when it's full of water? Like a dousing bucket or something. It's for cooling off items. Or maybe a better example might be like, let's say this is a repair bench that we just created, or we're creating it now. We get a little bit of UI that says, what kind of workstation do you want to create? We type in repair bench because we have a broken sword or something in our inventory. And then in the back end, we are generating a prompt for that repair bench that says, how many slots should this workstation have? Probably one. And then we pass that, or we chain that through to another prompt that says like, all right, there's one slot to this workstation. This is the intention. Here's the name of it. Generate a prompt that can be used to refine an item put in the slot and outputs this format. And then obviously there's some systems on top of that of like, how do you generate that model and place it in the world and all that. But I mean, those are solved problems. I would say maybe not generating the model, but the being able to generate those new workstations that just function as you would expect based on just typing their name, or like maybe you type in the name of enchanting station, or I don't know, whatever you want really. It should be able to just work as you expect just on the name, which I think is a little bit of magic for the player, which is pretty cool. Yeah, other systems, we have NPCs. So there's a bunch of them here in town. There will be more, but these are just the placeholder guys for now. You talk to him. Let me remove this item. Let's see, where would it be? Probably there. All right, now we can read his text. Let's talk to this guy. So each NPC has a description that seeds their like knowledge and personality. I don't know if we're going to show them to the player quite yet, just because it's a long paragraph and might be even longer later. But we're showing it now in the gray, so you can kind of see. And then there's no scripts for any of these NPCs either. Right now they are just prompted to introduce themselves to the player the first time they talk to them. And then after that, they generate their own problem that they're having in the world, or like a personal quest. And you learn about their problem and you can give them items. So it's a very open-ended quest system. There's a lot of different solutions. We use more AI smarts to determine if the item that you give them solves their quest, which makes it really kind of closes the window of previously you could generate like any quest for any NPC in a game. Like 10 years ago, I'd say, like you could just use Markov chains or something and generate random quests, or roll some dice and generate random quests from a table or something like that. But you always had to hard code in like these solutions to those, or have some sort of like tertiary metric of slay this many things, gain this XP, blah, blah, blah. But the cool thing here is that we can now have these open-ended quests and also use AI to determine if they are complete without the developer having to hard code in all those things, which sounds nice for like the developer's workload, but is most important for really just opening up the infinite possibilities of what the player can do, because I don't mind hard coding in a lot of things. Like it's fine, but I'm never going to be able to think through the craziest stuff that the players are going to do. Like we had a demo a while back, Chroma Golem, one of our first game jams. We built Smack to the Future Clone Wars Edition. We built it in a weekend. And let me show you this game. But the gist of this game is it's a little retro brawler. Hopefully that's not too loud. And you know what? It's a little retro brawler. You brawl on the street. Tony, you let me know if that's too loud. The music is so good, though. Yeah. You brawl on the street. You build up a little heat bar, and that determines when the police come and get you or come and interrogate you. And the heat score that you've generated is... Oh, yeah. I have it muted now. The heat score you generate is directly passed into the AI system of the cop. So the cop's brain, they have a sense of how dangerous you might be already. And so their interrogation style is going to change. Oh, it's not too loud now. Okay, cool. I guess I can just turn down my speakers. That makes sense. But the police show up, and if you beat up a ton of people, they're going to be really, afraid of you, very, hair trigger. And they might just take you to jail, and then you lose. But if you beat up just a few people, they're less suspicious, and so on. So it's this back and forth of feeding the game state into this AI system. And in the AI system, your goal as a player is to convince the cop that you are innocent. So you can do that however you want. And you could do that however you want 10 years ago before all this AI stuff. But there was no, you could type whatever you want, but getting the NPC to actually understand what you're saying and also respond in kind was pretty much impossible. And now it's not. So now we have this conversation back and forth, and it also affects a internal world value of how much suspicion the police has of you, and your goal as a player is to get that suspicion down as low as possible, and they let you go. So it's really like a conversational game mixed with a brawler that the conversation side actually works, which is crazy. And all this was to say we had a ton of people playtest this game, and we kept getting a ton of awesome comments about their stories and the things that they did to win. I expected people to just out logic the cop, or just be like, oh no, I didn't see anything, don't worry about it. But people were convincing the cop that the cop was a frog and they were just imagining all this, or that they were actually a superhero here to save the day. And some of them convinced the cop that they were actually the cop and not the cop, and they were going to arrest the cop. So lots of crazy, crazy things. And some of them worked, some of them didn't. It really depends on your skill in conversation, whether or how persuasive you can be. But I'll just show it off real fast, and we're just vibing, we're getting through, and we're gonna beat up some clones. Oh yeah. The theme of the game jam was clones, I believe, or copy or something like that. So our twist on this little already weird game is that sometimes clones of you show up in the street and also beat people up, which affects your heat score. And I'm actually playing this on a 4K monitor, so the UI is really small in the bottom left, but you see a clone out here beating people up, getting our heat score really high. So I'm going to beat him up, and I'm going to chill a little bit. Maybe after getting this guy off me, I'm going to let that heat score go down a little bit. Just playing it calm, I'm sure another clone will show up real soon. But Or, yeah, I guess police show up too. But, yeah, now you've switched from this brawl section to this conversation section, which I hope will still work. I might have actually rotated an API key since building this. Well, that was a fun demo. Glad we did that. But basically here, you would get a little, hey, stop right there, criminal scum. And then we generate some responses for you. We also e-type whatever you want. And it's back and forth. It's an NPC conversation. You're familiar with it. But I will have to go fix that. If you want to play this on your own, see what actually happens, you can head over to chromagolem.itch.io. It is Smack to the Future Clone Wars edition right there. So, yeah, so that's the gist of why talking to NPCs open-ended is so cool. We're actually doing the same thing here. We have a text box you can type whatever you want in, but rather than generate your responses directly, we're adding another layer here of generating what the responses would be. So you have a little bit more open-endedness. And so this guy says, whenever he starts hammering steel, his arms turn to soft clay, rendering him incapable of completing even the simplest tasks. Obviously, he can't do that as a blacksmith. So you can either maybe investigate or suggest a potion. I'll turn on some of this music. I don't know if that comes through. Hold on. Because this music is also a bop, I would say. Alrighty. And, to add on, when you leave an NPC and have had a conversation, it's also going to summarize that conversation and add those as facts to the NPC's history with you. So, for example, if we leave this guy, which I think, just to be sure, okay, yeah, there's some funkiness I need to sort out, but when we leave him, it's going to summarize that conversation. His arms turn to clay. So when we return, now it has a little summary at the top of what happened in the previous conversation. In a world where he struggles with mysterious ailment, turning his arms to soft clay, he seeks your expertise for a cure. He's going to ask about, like, have you found anything to help me? You can ask more questions, so maybe apologize. And then maybe we say, let's craft something. We got some carved birchwood and ash. That's a heavy blow, lad. Oof. These NPCs don't know anything about the player right now either, so that's fun. We're made of tougher stuff. If the earth won't give us what we need, then we'll just have to find another way. You got any other ideas? So now we can say, actually, I have this smoked birch charm that I bought from a wizard that is supposed to turn your arms into indestructible killing machines. I know you're not doing any killing and only hammering steel, but it seems like it might help you. And I don't know if they'll fall for it because we're lying, and also has a description of the resilience of birch, said to protect against ill spirits and bad luck, but it might work. He says, it sounds like a tale straight out of the old legends, turning my arms into indestructible killing machines. As long as they don't start swinging at the wrong things, I'm willing to give it a try, hand it over. So all you do is, when you have the item you want to give them, drag it on over. Again, we don't have an animation here. I should probably do an animation day. But we get a little debug text for us saying this is the item we gave them. It solved the problem. And he says, by the beard of the ancients, you've done it. Ever since I clasped that smoked birch charm around my wrist, my arms have been sturdy as the finest steel. No more do they turn to clay. I can hammer away without a hint of trouble. Cool. So he's very helpful. He is actually supposed to give us some of his items as a tip, but I don't think that he did that. Maybe I forgot to code that in. But that's a good segue into showing off that all these NPCs also have their own inventories. You can buy and sell the items you craft from them, or if you think an item would be really useful for something you're making, say this rune, maybe we want to add that to our carved birchwood. You just buy it from him and use it. And he also has that item you gave him, so if you really want that back, you could buy it from him, but it's going to cost a little bit more because it's useful to him. So lots of fun ways to acquire new items for the combination part here. Let's grab some crystals and stuff. Oh, we don't have any money. Let's sell him some bees. And let's head on over here. So again, when you leave him, it's going to summarize that previous conversation. And now when we return to him... Oh, right. Yeah, I didn't actually build the return quests stuff in because we've got Tony in the chat. He's working on some awesome brain stuff to really beef up these guys' brains and what they can do. So we're going to rework some of the quest stuff, and I just didn't want to duplicate the work, so I've been holding off on that. But yeah, that's NPCs, that's workstations. We have a few other workstations hidden around the world. Another cool one is this statue over here. So you can actually offer up an item, say bamboo bone staff, and you can write your own prayer, like, "Dear Lilioon, please bless this staff with the ability to raise the dead on Saturdays." And right now it's just random whether or not they grant your prayer or not. But we can have some systems that look at some of your previous actions in the game and what you've been doing to decide if this deity likes you or not. And so we got an item, doesn't have an image. Need to add that in, or just link that into our image generation stuff. But we did get a weapon that hums with the power to commune with the spirits. It grants the wielder the ability to raise the dead once per Saturday. Perfect. Yeah, so doing those quests for all those NPCs is really the primary loop of the game right now. The intended loop for this demo is we're going to have the player come in, meet all the NPCs, which will inherently introduce the player to all their problems. We're probably going to add all those NPC problems to the codex window, which I think I broke something else. But we'll add those notes on NPCs to the window so you can look back on previous conversations. And then when you know what everyone's ailed with, you can head on out into the world, collect a bunch of items, level up your skills, combine items, refine items, create items, and then come on back to town and start crafting up a storm, trying to make the right items for each NPC. You might make some cool items that you want to hold on to, maybe stick them in your stash for later. And ideally, when the NPCs have a little bit more brains, we'll have those follow-up quests that are either like a progression on the previous quest, or we might switch more to like a town-wide quest that each NPC has maybe a different opinion on. So say this town is actually having a lot of earthquakes lately, or maybe that's a little too hard to solve. maybe there's goblins coming in the night and they're stealing stuff. So the priest over there might have a different way that he wants it solved versus maybe this zoologist here who might want to go talk to the goblins and figure out a solution or something like that. So they'll each have things that they want to do, different items they might need to do that thing, but it is one big cohesive quest for the town, and maybe for the demo we'll just focus on like getting you to the end of that quest, solving the big problem. But the post demo afterwards is just infinite quests. In the same way we have infinite items, we want these NPCs to be a lot more alive, interacting with each other, interacting with the world, and constantly coming up with new problems and new conflicts with each other and with the player. And you need to basically help all these people that you like, maybe don't help the ones you don't like, build up your trust and respect and things with them. And, you know, there's a lot of different ways we could take it, but it is an open world game, so don't want to get too far ahead of myself. So we're just really focusing on those NPC quests and relationships up front. But yeah, that is the gist. There is a gigantic world to explore. You see all these mountains in the distance. Those are actually things that you can go to, so that's pretty fun. That tree over there is also really cool. It is the Tree of Creation. And also, as you're exploring this world, you're going to find more and more objects that obviously you can interact with in different ways. So there's incentive to go out and explore new areas. We've got a few different like biomes that you can find. We've got a desert kind of coming up over the hill now. We've got obsidian volcano over there. There's a dead forest over there. We've got some white mountains, some gemstone mountains. There's an ocean over there, or over there, I guess. There's a lake, the waterfall. There's a really cool golem at the top of the waterfall if you find your way up there. Lots of different things that you can find, and each thing will have more stuff for you to collect. So maybe you just want to use your hands on some tall grass or some clover. Like, there's just a bunch of stuff that you can find out in the world and go collect. So it's a good base. We're going to keep expanding it, and I think it's pretty fun so far. I just like going out and collecting stuff, crafting stuff. I can't wait for the skill stuff to be in so I can make those numbers get bigger. And yeah, so that was a good long 40 minutes of not coding, but a good little review of what we're working on. I think maybe we can do a little bit of stuff. So what do we want to do? Obviously, there were some bugs we could fix, but I think more fun would be if we start a little bit on the tutorial or guides to guide the player in a certain path when they first start out. Obviously, that's pretty intertwined with, say, a quest system, which we only have the bones of right now and is kind of placeholder for some of the smarts that we're going to do later. But I think we can start on the guides, and we can get it in place that we can potentially plug in the quest system later. So, at the very basics, the things that we need are some like UI panels that we can stick some text in, and then we also need some sort of logic or triggers for when to show each panel. So we'll build up the panel real fast, and then we'll get into logic, because I think that'll be more of the fun stuff. But for panels, I think we can just kind of do some hard-coded ones for each thing that we want to do. Maybe we could like do more dynamic guides and stuff later, but I think we're going to want to hard-code all of them so we know exactly what we're telling the player to do. So I think it's going to be fine. So let's go ahead and start on some panels. So very first one, I think we'll just show when the player first starts, and we're just going to say like click to move, click to interact with stuff, go to town. Literally. So let's build that real fast. We'll want a frame of some sort. Something like, I guess we could do something like that. Let's scale it up so it's actually proper size. We might give it a background too. Or, you know, that could look nice. Because it doesn't block, I mean, we might want it to block view a little bit because, I mean, the whole point is not overwhelming the player. And just saying like, hey, here's one thing to read. It will tell you what to do. So let's, I do like that frame though. Let's look and see what some of these other frames look like when they're scaled up. Something like this might be a little bit better. And we can just give it a little opacity. Let's do this one. So we'll say frame. Let's nest this all under user one movement and interacting. Just the stuff it'll talk about. Let's give it a background. Nest it under the frame so we can expand it, get it the right size, but then put it over the frame or under the frame. So this guy will be nice black, but somewhat transparent. And then we'll want, say, a title and some text. We could have also an image, probably, for like an icon or maybe a screenshot or something, but we'll add that in a sec. So let's say text. Let's anchor our, oh, it's all, okay. So make that nice and big. Is this also, okay. So our guides, let's actually make the full size. We anchor this back in. And then we stretch this. Let's put our frame anchored correctly. And now we can just resize this. So we're going to try and use this as like a template for all of our guides. Something like this probably is good. Let's go ahead and get these titles looking good. And so we probably Some sort of image is probably nice. We could even do it below. Something like that. And then these will start at the top and scale down. That's good. And how does this look? Looks fine. Probably want to dismiss button. And we'll do a big ol' button instead of the X just to make sure players don't miss it. Excuse me. So let's say got it. Anchor this bad boy down here. And that's good enough. So let's go ahead and save that as a prefab somewhere. Cool. And then we can just change this one to have our actual stuff we want to show. All right, so we probably can hit them with more information than usual in the very first pop-up, but we still don't want to go overboard. So let's say, welcome to the game. Go to town. Here's how to move. Okay, so there's our basic movement. Middle click and drag to move the camera. Okay. And then we can say you've just arrived near the town of Sprocket. Head into town to meet its inhabitants, its citizens. You should head into town to meet its citizens. Maybe we say that before. Sounds good. Does that look on the screen? Looks good. You'll dismiss it with that. And then we can show one of these, like the first time you interact with an object, the first time you talk to someone, the first time you open your inventory, the first time you open your codex, and so on. So I think these will help feed little bits of knowledge to the player. Again, because there's a lot of different stuff that they can do because it is so open-ended, but we want to make sure that, one, they're discovering those things, so you get occasional tips like this to go do X, Y, and Z, which should lead to the next one, like talking to NPCs and stuff. But also, when you are exposed to those systems for the first time, say you clicked on a tree and you didn't realize that it's just using your hands and you can use whatever tool you want. We want to give a little info to say like, hey, here's how to actually use this system. You can use it however you want, but here's how it works. So that should be good. I actually want to maybe, I should probably be building all of these in 1080p scaling. So let's do that. Unfortunately. Because I don't really know how to scale text. Like I can use the nice anchor points for scaling things to a % of the screen, which maybe I can. I don't see them now. But I don't know how to do that with text other than the auto size text, which is not that great when you try and anchor stuff and use padding. But I guess let's go back and redo all this. Get it fit on 1080p is what we want to target. Not everybody has 4K screen yet. So here, this guy gets anchored to the top. So we probably actually want a stack, like a header stack here. And yeah, we'll just do this to the actual prefab and apply all these. So our image and title get dropped into the header stack. Yeah, that's fine. Let's apply it so we can use those changes. And then this guy anchors to the top and across. Image anchors top center. Title is probably going to be middle. Don't know that matters when we have a vertical layout group. Middle center. Why are you so large? Is it just... Oh, that's huge. So this font's actually too large. And maybe I actually want to do more of a, well, what if we did a horizontal layout group? Put the potion to the left. It offsets the text a lot, which I don't love. But I guess we could kind of offset that too. I don't really love that. What did I do to collapse all of my space? Oh, I see. 32. Yeah, we don't want to do this. Okay. So now we really want, I mean, I guess we can just do a full stack, add the text within it, just to make sure stuff is always stacked properly. So this can now be the full size. This can be full width. And what happens? Okay, that's fine. Why are you so large? Oh, there we go. And so you probably need slightly smaller font. 30. I feel like this image probably should leave the stack so we can place it a little bit better. It might just be like, do we even want it? Probably not, actually. Because then we'd have to store an image for each of the guides and everything. We don't need to. Keep it nice and simple. So we can actually reduce our top padding now to like 24-ish. Or nothing. And then probably should add this to the stack too. And then maybe we can make it just a little bit bigger. Oh, can we not adjust the size because it's in prefab mode in context? That's probably it. Okay, so it looks good when we scale it. Things don't overlap, which is good. And for this demo, we're actually going to not use this, I believe. So we'll disable that. And then it makes a lot more sense to have this like full screen. Boy, that looks so small when it's on a 4K display. Let's see. Something like this. So it probably doesn't need to be that big. Oh boy. Seems fine. Maybe we'll make the button a little smaller. Alright, that looks a lot better. And we could embellish this a little bit more or make it look prettier, but it does the job. Okay, so because we will break all of our other UI if we actually switch back to 1080p right now, I'm going to switch this to 4K just for the stream. And let's make sure it still looks good, but I think it will. I just need to go through all the other UI and scale it back like we just did. So, great. And we could pause like the game, pause player movement, stuff like that, but I feel like it's fine. Like if a player wants to move around, they can, and then eventually they'll dismiss it because it's obviously in the way. But yeah, this is a good intro, I'd say. The town is Sprocket, you should enter town, meet its citizens, left click to move, or to interact with objects. Cool. Alrighty, so that is one guide. Let's give it... Do we need specialized class, or can we just have a guide window? Does each guide need... Can I give it a UI window base? And then rig this guy up to... hide window. That'll work. And we can always extend UI window later if we want to give, like, when you dismiss this, if you wanted to start showing UI or something like that. But yeah, this is the panels we'll use. That's the first part of what we need for this guide system. Second part is the logic for knowing when to show and hide each of the panels. So like first time you interact with something, first time you do X, Y, and Z, or the first time you could do X, Y, and Z, show a little panel, toggle a little flag that says this panel has been shown, so you don't need to check that condition in the future, so you're not constantly checking like, hey, have they done this thing? But before we get into that, I'm going to take a quick little bathroom break, refill my water. I will be right back. Thank you for joining me. I will press play so we get a little music, little game music in the meantime, and I will be right back. We are back in business. Thanks for your patience. Alright. So we've got our panel. And clicking it closes it. Perfect. So now we just gotta show them and hide them at will. So there's really two main ways that we could go about this. I don't know which way is the more obvious way, but I feel like most people would think of one way or the other and be like, oh yeah, that's the way. Way one is we have a single service that is constantly checking what the player is doing and saying if they are X distance away from town, then show this guide. If they have just clicked on an object and started interacting with it, then show this guide. Or if they have just combined an item, show this guide. If they received an item, show this guide. And so it's kind of a service that is reaching out into other parts of the game to read changes. So like looking at the inventory, seeing if it's changed, looking at the player's state, seeing if it's changed. And it's doing all this logic very contained in this one location specific to guides to determine whether these guides should be shown or not. And I think the benefits of that approach is that obviously it's all very well contained. And if you want to work on guides or debug an issue on guides or something, you know exactly where to go. The downside is it's a lot less efficient, I'd say. It's more of like a poll almost, like you're every so often reading the inventory and checking to see if the count has changed, or you're every so often checking what the game player state is. So one, that can have a little bit of latency, which is a little weird. If you were to like click on this tree and 200 milliseconds later, it is the next read and it says, oh, the player is now queued up to do something. Let's show that guide. I think it would probably be nicer. Well, it might not be nicer. I don't know. If you were to click on the tree and you instantly get a guide saying you interact with trees this way, blah, 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 blah. Or should you start running there and then slight delay shows it? Probably doesn't matter either way, but doing that polling kind of inherently introduces that delay, so you don't really have the choice. The other way you could do guides kind of like this, and this is actually the way like a lot of achievements are calculated in games, this sort of dichotomy of ways. You can also just go litter the rest of your code with calls to the guide system or however you want to control these guides. So these trees have generic interactable world object scripts on them. In that script, it handles when the player clicks on them and does all the stuff to harvest. It could also say, if the player hasn't seen the harvest guide, show the harvest guide. Benefit to that, obviously, is everything is it's spread out throughout your code base, but your guide stuff is with the code that it is related to, which is pro and con. Balloons the code, but is all related, and you need to remember like how to show and check that guide stuff everywhere in the same way. But it is always instant and guaranteed to trigger at the right time. So, I mean, this wouldn't be an exploit or anything, but if you had one guide that was meant to show the first time you picked up an item, and the player went and picked up an item and immediately dropped it, so very little time went by, they might have got between some of those polls and they weren't shown that guide then, whether intentionally or not. Like, that's the sort of issue you run into with that sort of polling, and it's also way less efficient. So I'm going to go with the messy code, the spaghetti code. We're going to add all this logic elsewhere, I think. But we will build a nice service for showing and hiding and handling all that logic of which guides to show. So we will start with that, I'd say. So we'll say new player tutorial service. Let's give that a script. And then in that script, we'll have helpers that we can call just like single lines from elsewhere in the code that will show a specific guide if relevant. I guess there is a third way you could code this, and that would be to have like hooks almost. So your code for harvesting with objects or combining items or talking to NPCs could all have callbacks or events that trigger when that happens, like on harvest, on item combine. And you could have this like new player tutorial service register callbacks of its own that would be called every time that happens. But I think that's kind of like a middle ground between the two, where you're still going to be calling this logic every time something happens and then determining, hey, we don't actually need to do anything about it. And I think it leans more into the spaghetti code also, because it's way less obvious how they're linked instead of just calling it directly from the related code. So that is an interesting option. I always do like the callback-based approaches like that, but I never think they are good code. So just want to acknowledge that one, but also acknowledge we're not going to do it. But alrighty, so let's set up this guy. So we're going to obviously store references to all of our guides in here, but I don't know yet whether we want to name them all or just stick them in a list. Probably name them all so they can be referenced. But what we will do is we'll have, let's just start with our very first one. So we've got a public game object ref 001 guide panel, or just, we can just say, maybe 001's a terrible name. They don't really need to be ordered. So we'll say movement and interaction panel. And they could also be like new player panel, however we want to organize them, but that'll be fine. So we will also have a public public dictionary of game object to bool of shown panel already. We want to default all of those to false. So that's going to be our flag that later when we have logic of should we show this panel or not, we can just do a 0 of 1 lookup here to skip over that logic if we've already shown this panel to the player. So we probably want a show panel, game object panel, which that will do what we want. However, we do need to add each of those to the dictionary with a default of false to begin with. I'm already seeing that this is probably not going to scale really well because we're going to need, obviously, here and here already are places where we add new panels. So we'll probably revise that a little bit, but we could also have a hide panel, which probably don't need because we're using the UI window, hide window. So we'll keep it nice and thin for now. But the other thing that we are going to do in here is just at the start of the game, show our movement and interaction panel. So that's how we will show panels from elsewhere in the code. Let's go ahead and make sure this is disabled by default. Let's make sure that it just works as expected. We should play the game and it should just show the panel at the start, and then we should be able to close it. Okay. We didn't set the reference, obviously. So here, this panel, let's try that once more. Alrighty. And yeah, I guess in our panel service where we're showing the panel, that's where we could like fade it in, fade it out, do whatever we want when it first loads in. But it shows at the start, it hides, great. So the next panel we want to add is when you harvest something for the first time. The colliders on our birch tree are very wrong. Let me double check that real fast. It's this guy. Oh, that's also very wrong, but not wrong in the way I expected. Birch tree C. Are your colliders also huge? They are. Huh. Okay. Well, let's bring those in. You know what? Let's do this later, because we want to hit all the trees at once, and I don't want to get distracted. Let's see here. I was distracted. What were we doing? Oh, right. So the first time you interact with an object that has generic interactable world object, then we want to show a panel to the player. And we'll probably do that the stages of this interaction that we could do it at are when you first click the object before you've like run over to it. That's 1. When you get to the object and start researching, that's 2. Or 3 when you start harvesting. Obviously you're going to research first, so I think we want a tutorial about researching first. But we also probably want one about using tools on the object. But I feel like we want 1 when you start researching, and then 2 when you actually start harvesting. Because I feel like if you show a panel to a player immediately upon them clicking an action like this, and it just pops up when stuff is going on in the background, I think they're just going to immediately close it so they can see what happens for themselves. But if we show it at this point where the player is standing still and doing something, we give them something to read in the meantime, I think that will have a way higher read rate. So let's build our 2 panels for harvesting. And I think we're going to do something a little weird. We're going to put one on the left of the screen, one on the right, so that if the player's not done researching or reading the one about research, by the time the second one pops up, they will pop up next to each other instead of overlapping each other. Let's first apply all of our changes to this, and then let's bring in 2 more guide templates. And yeah, we don't need to order these at all. That's getting ahead of ourselves. We've got researching objects, and we've got harvesting objects with tools. All right, let's bring both of these up so we can see them. So we can get them displayed in the correct spot on the screen. Let's go back to 1920. Oof. Is that really? Maybe if I bring them in why are you scaled so differently? Alright, it's whatever. So as I said, we have researching objects and harvesting objects with tools. This guy, let's just copy the dimensions. Excuse me. Scale, we'll just type it in. It's 824 by 708. And we're going to scale these anyway, so it doesn't really matter. 824.708. And let's get these both looking good on the screen. So this guy moves left. This guy moves right. Okay, that could work. I mean, we don't even need to scale them, we can just move them. Alright. So let's say for this guy, researching objects. I wish we had a better name than objects for all the stuff in the world. I feel like it's so generic. It could even be like items, or, I mean, anything could be an object, I guess. But I don't want to call them like interactables, because that's pretty wordy. Let's see. Let's see. Not sure how we want to actually describe this yet, because it kind of depends on the tools, and we don't want it to be a repeat thing. So let's maybe start with this. Harvesting with tools. You can use any tool on any object you want. After you've researched what item you get from a specific tool, you'll always get that item when using that tool on that object. See, like that is very researching objects-esque. But let's see if we can make this work with 2 side-by-side things. So here, if you've never used a tool or your hands on an object, you'll need to first research. You will discover new item. You will need COVID brain coming in hot. You'll need to research what item you'll get from that object first. No, that's so long. The first time you use an item or your hands on each object, on an object, you'll color equals purple research what item you'll get. You'll first research, you'll need to research, you will research, you'll research. You'll first. That's wordy but clearest. The first time you use an item or your bare hands on an object, you'll first research what item you'll get. You, from after researching, you will always get that item when using. Nope, that's what we've already written on the right hand side. We can keep it nice and short. First time you use an item or your bare hands on an object, you'll first research what item you'll get. This creates new items in the game that may not already exist. Do we need to say that? Researching creates new items in the game. All right, that's clear. That's cool. Should we also mention our codex here, or is that too much? You can view all of your research in your codex. Color equals gray. Press C to open your codex. I mean, we don't have that that shortcut yet, but it's whatever. Nah, we don't need to mess with that. We can show, like, on the 5th research that you've done, then show another guide for open your codex, because then it'll look cooler and be more filled out too. So we'll do that. Alright, the first time you use an item or your bare hands on an object, you'll first research what item you'll get. Researching creates new items in the game. And over here, when you're done researching and you start harvesting, you can use any tool on any object you want. We should probably say, first time you use a tool, any tool, or your bare hands on an object, first research what item you'll get. You can use any tool on any object you want. After you've researched what item you'll get, you'll always get that item when using that tool on that object. I mean, that's so wordy too, but maybe we can make it a little easier on the eyes with color equals light blue and color equals light blue and color equals light blue. After you've researched what item you get with a specific tool, you'll always get that item when using that tool on that object. That seems fine. Okay. So let's go add those. Let's say close all to the right. New player tutorial. We'll say public game object ref researching objects panel public game object ref harvesting objects panel. Really don't want to have to add these every time, but we will for now. We'll come refactor that later. We just want them to default to not shown, because here, let's actually call this show panel unless already shown, and then we can say that. So if we've already shown it, then don't show it again. But the first time we will show it, which is relevant now when we are clicking on an object. We want to show it the first time, but not every time you click on an object. Excuse me. Let's see here. All right, so we're going to head on over to generic interactable world object. And we decided that we want to show this when you start researching, and this when you start harvesting. So let's first make sure that these have the correct. They do. Oh, it's because we brought in prefabs instead of copying and pasting. Noise. Right. So when we interact with an object, we are checking to see if we already have a recipe or not. That is where we branch based on, do we need to harvest or do we need to research? So if we are harvesting, show the harvesting guide if not already shown. And what we're going to do is swap this guy over to a singleton so we can reference it over yonder. And we will say new player tutorial service dot instance dot show panel already. Dot show panel unless already shown for harvesting. Don't like the panel at the end of all these, but I do think it should be up here. Okay, so ref panel, harvesting objects. So now down here, we're going to do the same thing, but for research. And these will get called every time we interact with this object, but because we have this short circuit here, which is a 0 of 1 lookup, we can do whatever logic we want, like in both the panel itself opening and running its own scripts or whatever, but none of that actually runs if we've already shown the panel. So it should be nice and secure that way. But now we should have both of these showing up. When they show, they are flipping that on, so they're not going to re-show, so we don't need to do any checks or anything. Let's make sure that works, I guess. Might be that easy. We will turn them off by default. well, let's turn them on. Let's switch back to our 4K. All right, we'll turn them off now. And now we should see the first one. When we start researching, we're going to click on an object, not see it, then run. I see we have an error. Oh. It is because we didn't set those references, so that would have been an issue. All of these. So movement and interaction, researching objects, harvesting objects with tools. I guess we could build like a custom editor for the new player tutorial service where we could effectively have a list of things that we can give names to and also have like nice forms for them. So we don't have to store all this data in the actual like text objects that could all be in here that we customize it. But we can come back to that. That's a lot of work for a very little benefit, I guess. Right, we set those. So now we're going to click on an object, not see any guide. We will run to that object. When we start researching, we'll see the left guide. When we start harvesting, we'll see the right guide. Okay. I'm going to let it go until we're done researching. Okay, so when we kind of short circuit that harvest, down at the end of our chain for researching, we actually want to also show the harvesting guide that way. So we can close this, but now we should now see the harvest guide that way too. But let's do once more, make sure it all looks smooth and doesn't reopen, etc., etc. And we also want to we want to disable moving when we're clicking these got it buttons. Oh, it didn't move that time. All right, no, nothing yet. Researching. Okay, cool. Researching creates new items in the game. Wow, that's cool. I want to know more. You can use any tool on any object you want. We should probably say if you don't have a tool in your tool belt, you use your hands. Like a nice little hint to the tool belt. After you research what item you get with a specific tool, you always get that item when using that tool on that object. Do we even need to say that? Like, let's just say you'll first research what item you'll get when you use that tool. And then we can talk more about the tool belt here. Okay. And then here, you can use any tool on any object you want. To change tools, just drag an item from just drag a tool to change your active tool. You can drag tools from your inventory to your tool belt. To change your active tool, use the scroll wheel Or, I mean, you can click on it, you can use the number keys, but we'll keep it simple there. Let's see here. You can use any tool on any object you want. You can use any tool on any object. When you're not using a tool, you'll use your bare fists first. Your bare hands. You can drag tools from your inventory to your tool belt. To change your active tool, use the scroll wheel. You can use any tool on any object. Experiment with the combinations. Experiment. So we're telling them they use their bare hands. We are telling them to open their inventory, telling them about the tool belt, telling them to use the scroll wheel to change their active tool using the tool belt, and then finally telling them that you can use any tool on any object. So really dense information there, but I mean, the longer they take to read it, the more of the item that they're harvesting they harvest. So they're literally paid to read it, I guess, so should be fine. But I think both of them ending with some sort of like exciting thing, like researching creates new items, and you can use anything on anything. You should go experiment. It's also exciting. So let's disable those real fast. And then make sure they both look good when we harvest. First time you use any tool, your bare hands on an object, you're forced to research what item you get when using that tool. Researching creates new items in the game. Alright, you got birch logs. Now we're harvesting. When you're not using a tool, you use your bare hands. You can drag tools from your inventory to your tool belt. To change your active tool, use the scroll wheel, which it does interact with the harvest, but that's fine. You can use any tool on any object, experiment with all kinds of combinations. So we'll probably show another when they open their inventory. But let's make sure neither of those show again, both on harvest and on research. Cool. And I guess we could show those like in the codex somewhere. Tip. Right, we gotta kill that coroutine. Like a help section or something, but we can add that later, I think. Alrighty, so these guides are done. So next up, let's look at the inventory. We'll show a guide for that, because we obviously want to tell them about the alchemy system. Combining items. Again, we should move this back to 1080. And, oh yeah, right. You know, we could spend the time to rescale our UI windows here. Would it even be that hard? What could go wrong? Alright, we're doing all these in 4K still. I need to make a day of UI stuff. I hate the UI stuff. But, interestingly, we have UI canvas after or before our UI Windows canvas. So I think what we should do is create a new canvas for top level canvas. And then we want to put our guides in that, so they're always drawn on top of other stuff. And we could put other stuff on our top level canvas too if we want, but it's whatevs. So now let's move this guy to bring attention to this. Something like this. Maybe cover up that X button. And let's see if we can write something coherent. You are an alchemist with the power to combine any two items. Just drag any items to the slots in your alchemy workbench and press the button. Drag your components into the alchemy workbench and create to craft. Drag your components into the alchemy workbench. Then press the button. Sure, that's clear enough. We will say alchemy will create new items in the game. You can browse the alchemy recipes you've discovered from your codex at any time. Be consistent with how we set it in the other place. Alchemy creates new items in the game, right? Researching creates new items in the game, yeah. Maybe we don't need that quite yet. Alrighty, that's looking good. So we'll show this the first time the player opens their inventory. I guess we could have another one the first time they create an item. And that's where we could say, like, congratulations, you created a new item in the game, browse all your recipes in the codex or something. But we probably don't need that one quite yet. But just trying to think through the states in which we might want to add a guide. Let's see, does this look better? And we can make this a little smaller. Any two items into something new. Colors. Any two items into something new. Drag your components from your inventory to the alchemy workbench, then press the button. Alchemy creates new items in the game. Okay. Cool. New player tutorial service. We'll head on back to you. Same. And I believe our hook for combining items is the item combining controller. And we branch here again based on whether we know the ingredient or we don't know the ingredient, but we want to show the recipe or the guide either way. So if there is a valid combination, oh yeah, that's just if there is items. Show the item combining guide. Wait, do we want to do this when they combine an item or when they first open their inventory? I think we just want to do it when they open their inventory. So we can do this on inventory window manager. Callback before window show. We could do it after window show. It doesn't really matter. Do it on window show. Why not? New player, tutorial service, combining items. Perfect. Cool. We will go make sure that that works. Not the inventory window. Combining items. Cool. That guy gets disabled. That guy also gets disabled. Excuse me. Sorry. So if I open my inventory, nothing. Are we calling after window show even? Because we have this. We are calling it. Oh, So the script will be active by then. Let's go make sure that that was defaulted to false. It was. Okay, we want to make sure that this prints and that it's not exiting early, but I bet might be some, I mean, it doesn't really matter which of these we did, so let's just move that over to before window show and I'll debug after window show sometime else. Dang. Alright, open our window. It's there. It's under our window. Interesting. Why? How? I thought if they had the same sort order, it would use the order in the hierarchy, but I guess we'll just change that. Well, let's sort order 1. Cool. You can combine. You're an alchemist with the power to combine any 2 items into something new. Drag your components from your inventory to the alchemy workbench, then press the button. And if they try and drag it in the wrong slot, obviously it doesn't work. But if they drag stuff in here, push the button, alchemy creates new items in the game. Bucket of apples. Probably want tooltips on their own canvas as well. But we could do these guys like that. So tooltip should now show over, yeah. Yeah, that's probably good. So let's make sure that closes. It does. Cool. Let's redo all those. Move. Right. You know what? Let's just unpack that bad boy. Ooh, those guys shouldn't be unpacked. unpack just the parent. These guys come out. This guy gets a sort order of 1. Things should be good. Yeah. Alrighty. Other guides we need is probably talking to an NPC. Maybe opening your skills and opening the codex. But probably most important is talking to an NPC next. So let's bring in another one. Talking to NPCs. And the things that we want to say are NPCs understand you. You can say whatever you want. They'll tell you about a problem they're having. That's their quest. They have an inventory that you can buy and sell items to. So let's see if we can fit those in. Talking to living NPCs. Let's say that's fine for now. It implies that there's a separate guide for talking to dead NPCs, but NPCs in Elixir Emporium each have their own brain. Each NPC has their own brain. They will remember you and details. Let's just get stuff in, I guess. You can buy or sell items to this NPC with their inventory tab. They NPCs will come up with their own quests for you based on the problems they're experiencing. We want this to be a lot smaller, I think. 'Cause, yeah. Let's get it on the screen. And we can make this one nice and big because it's kind of a blowout feature that might be screenshotable. Like, what the heck is this? Okay, so let's get back to the text. Based on the problems they're experiencing, you can craft the perfect item to help their problem, to help them, and drag it from your inventory into this window to give it to them. Very wordy, but we're getting there. Let's see. We don't need to say they have their own brain. I think that will become very obvious very quickly and without needing to be pointed towards it. You can also buy or sell items. Okay, something like this. NPCs will come up with their own quests. Let's say, come up with endless quests for you based on the problems they're experiencing. Let's see, what did we call this quest system on the Steam page? I don't remember. Non-deterministic quests and events. Don't think we need to hit the player with that. Come up with like unique, always different. Come up with new quests for you. Unique. Interesting. Open-ended. Craft the perfect item to help them, help their problem, help them. Okay. Talking to NPCs and quests. Let's see here. And then we can say solving an NPC's problem will reward you with new items, XP, and friendship. Points. And a friendship. And more friendship and improved friendship. I feel like there's got to be a regular old word here, but my brain says no. And friendship score, friendship points. New items, XP, and higher friendship. More intimate friendship. And a stronger friendship. And then we'll say solving it successfully to imply that you can fail. With new items, XP, and a stronger friendship. You can also buy or sell items by clicking on their inventory tab. That's really not super important, but do we include it? I feel like they'll miss that button if we don't say something. We could also have a separate tab or a separate guide for like merchanting or something. Maybe we will do that, actually. Okay. Seems fine for now. Let's do a little color. Open-ended quests, kind of important, cool to point out. And drag it from your inventory into their window. Into the conversation to give it to them. Oh right, we didn't say like, say whatever you want. I mean, that should be pretty self-explanatory, I guess. Hopefully. Okay. So we'll show this one whenever you talk to an NPC. So we should open up the NPC window to see how it looks next to it. Something like that. And yeah, we can show the the merchanting guide when they click this button. Surely they'll see it and try it at some point. Maybe we add a little tooltip on it too. But this seems fine here. So let's rig that guy up. So that'll be on generic NPC, generic interactable NPC. We could do it when you click on the actual guy, or we could do it when the window opens. I feel like we'll do it when the window opens. So we can do it on NPC window manager. And let's grab the same sort of call that we did here. And then before window show, we can just do this and we'll do a ref NPC. Alright, so that should show the talking to NPCs guide. The player has... I guess we could also have a guide for like, go check out their previous conversation in your codex. Maybe that's obvious. We can do a little guide on that tab in the codex or something. But I guess let's go make sure that that works real fast. We got a guard at the front of the town that we can run over to real fast. Did we set that reference though? Did not. Now let's try it. Maybe we say meet the locals instead of its inhabitants. Alright, Hal. Talking to NPCs. NPCs will come up with open-ended quests for you based on the problems they're experiencing. Craft the perfect item to help them and drag it from your inventory into the conversation to give it to them. Solving an NPC's problem successfully will reward you with new items, XP, and a stronger friendship. Cool. It works. Okay, next up, we could do a guide for when you open this up, which I guess, yeah, that's a good point that other things that open your panels might trigger some of these guides too. So maybe we want the merchant guide like down here or something. But I mean, we don't really have a gold sink in the game, so there's not really a point in trying to get the highest gold you can get, but I do think it is a fun way to play. So maybe we will do a guide just for letting players know, like, this is a way to play. So let's do one of those. And let's get our combining items guide open and our guide template for merchanting. And I can't remember if we actually had that as a skill that will gain XP or not, and like help you get other prices and unlock some stuff. But let's open NPC and inventory windows so we can position these well. Let's move this guy down yonder. And maybe we make him smaller because obviously it's less important. But I want to double check to see if merchanting was one of the skills. Because we might theme this a little bit differently if it is. No. We have social, but no merchanting. Okay. So we will just call this buying and selling. Each NPC has their own inventory of items that you can purchase. They will also use items, collect items from the world, and sometimes trade with other NPCs. So check back for new items often. You can also sell your items to this NPC or two NPCs for a quick profit. Items for sale. They will also use items, collect items from the world, and sometimes trade with other NPCs, so check back for new items often. You can also sell your items for a quick profit. I think that's fine. We don't actually have this in the game yet. Waiting on the brain stuff, but that is the goal there. So we'll do a little nicety for the demos so people aren't expecting this bit. Not in the demo. Alright, so that'll be a easy way to say that's coming, but not here. Cool. Small little thing. We'll rig that up as well. Got our ref panel merchant, or let's just say NPC inventories. We will set that, and then we will rig it up from the NPC window controller. Okay, NPC window manager. We have our active tab. Where is that used? Receive item stack, show conversation tab, show shop tab. There we go. Easy. Alrighty, let's go double check that that works and looks good as well. We turn off all these panels. I'm not sure why we were moving originally when we closed the panel. We were like, that click of it was triggering a move. Alright, so here we should get our first guide, talking to NPCs. This could probably be a little bit smaller, but we'll resize it when we do 1080. When we switch to this, it'll open our inventory, show that guide, and also his inventory, that guide. Okay. Cool. Maybe we add the gold icon to this guy. Is it called like coins or something? What did we use in the inventory window? Those are different. Alright. Currency is gold container, gold coin, greed, right, obviously. Let's do signature. Excuse me. Alright, so that also links it to that icon, which I see in their inventory. Nice. And I think we also use that icon on image tooltips to show how much it's worth too. Alrighty. So other guides. I mean, we could do more. We basically have our system in place now though. Obviously there's a lot of stuff to do in the game, but we can now build these super simple guides for different systems we want to show the player. I think we'll do one more, and then it's just kind of like I'm doing the same thing over and over again and still dying a little bit, so I'm gonna take it easy today. But let's do one more guide. I can walk through that like a high level how stuff work, but I think these will be really good for introducing the player to different either controls that they might not know, like clicking and dragging the middle mouse button to move the camera, or to systems that they might not know how to use, like the just random inventory slots above your inventory. You have to drag items in and click a button. So we're going to do one more guide for blacksmithing. And we'll show that when the player reaches the anvil, because that's the main blacksmithing skill window. We will probably style the skill panels a little bit differently, just so you can see like, oh, this is a guide for how to level up the skill or something. But for now, let's just say blacksmithing. And we can say we'll get the things down that we need and we can revise it, but you are not experienced in blacksmithing, but your skill will improve as you do it. Craft smith new items at the anvil to also gain blacksmithing XP and unlock new blacksmithing recipes. Okay, I feel like this is going to be too large. Again, let's at least scale them all down to roughly the same. We can do another like full screen one because this is an important thing, I'd say. So we'll just level off top and bottom, anchor it to the toolbar. As you do it, as you try it, as you smith new items at the anvil to also gain blacksmithing XP and unlock new blacksmithing recipes. You can also put your blacksmithing expertise at the furnace once you've unlocked it. I don't like any of this. Right. Skills database. We don't need to pull the skill icon right now. You're not experienced in blacksmithing, but your skill will improve. But that doesn't mean you can't be. Smith new items at the anvil to also gain blacksmithing XP and unlock new recipes. You can also put your blacksmithing expertise to work at the furnace once you've unlocked it. You can also gain blacksmithing XP at the furnace. All right. I'm sure we'll fill this out more as we also fill out this skill. But for our final guide, let's also rig it up for the Anvil window. Anvil window manager. First we need to add it here. Public inventories. Skill blacksmithing. So we'll also have skills for like fishing and cooking and farming and stuff, and you'll get panels that describe each of those too. Let's go ahead and link that. Disable it by default. It is a little empty right now, but I think that's fine because we're going to add more when we fill out. I want to leave some space for more stuff. I just want to get the scale of the window right. Anvil window manager. Call back before window show. Show the blacksmithing guide if the player hasn't seen it yet. Cool. All right. One last check. And then I'm going to go take a nap. Let's run over to that blacksmith. Okay, so I can click anywhere in here and I don't move. That's good. Okay. We're going to get our panels here. Researching objects. I think we want to move that thing over here, except when a panel is open. Okay, we get also these. Let's also go talk to an NPC, get those, and then we'll head over to the anvil. Alright, Hal. We might want to say like NPCs in Elixir Emporium or something, just to really hammer in that it is something specific to NPCs here versus just a basic guide telling players, here's what NPCs are. But let's also look at that. Okay, cool. These guides are looking really good, I think. Can also buy some items. Could have a guide like the first time you buy an item, but we're really leaving room to add stuff later, I think. Alright, anvil. Blacksmithing. You are not experienced in blacksmithing, but that doesn't mean you can't be. Smith new items at the anvil to also gain blacksmithing XP and unlock new recipes. You can also gain blacksmithing XP at the furnace. Okay, so the window itself has the guide. Choose an item to use as a material when crafting weapons or armor. So we might want to change that to say like drag in an item, but we do say chalk. Oh, did we break something? Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah, I think our references, when we moved the UI drag parent, that is it. Look at this, look at this. I know I didn't say any real words there, but if I search UI drag parent correctly, we have a hard-coded reference here to where it's at. So this actually needs to be top level canvas, so we can find that reference, put it in the right spot, yada yada yada. But you can blacksmith here, so let's double check that that small change just now worked, so we can drag items around in the inventory basically. But other than that, we'll call the guides done for now. We've got our system in place. It's super simple. It's actually like the system itself. It's like 20 lines most of it needs refactored out. Just really, really simple. We've got our flags so we can do instant lookups to see whether a panel has already been shown. And then that lets us just show it super, super simply whenever a condition is met somewhere else. We don't need to like check anything. We can just say, show it if we haven't shown it. And it shows it and then flips it as already shown. And then the UI window script that we have on it just has a hide window, which sets it inactive. So super, 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 super simple. We built out our panels in the actual engine in the inspector, and cool, that works again. Just wanted to make sure. Let's get a bucket of cactus in here, and then I'll probably just call it. I know I got a couple people lurking, but we don't need to raid anyone today. We'll keep it nice and chill. What do we get here? Bucket of cactus water. Perfect. But yeah, this is Elixir Emporium. We're working on Steam page for it right now, and we hope to have a demo up real soon. Obviously, we're still polishing up a lot of stuff, so like we spent a couple months on getting all these systems working. We have a lot more systems to build, but we wanted to get these at least in your hands so we can start getting some feedback and seeing how things feel. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what people think. We've also got a Discord, which I will link in the chat, and that should go to the VOD as well. If this game sounds exciting, you want to play it, you want to make sure you get updates, you just want to check out and see what else we're doing, talk about what you're doing, go hit up that Discord. It's for game developers and gamers, so you might be able to find some gamers for your games. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'm sure my voice is not the greatest today, but I'm getting through the stuff, and I should be back to 100% hopefully next week, so we shall see. Thanks for tuning in. It's been fun. We got a lot done. We got some done. And I will be here at the same time next week, 1 p.m. Pacific time. We're always developing here at the Chroma Golem. Oh, this is on the TrueSwift channel. And yeah, I'll probably do some more streams soon. Might start the Minecraft streams. Cannot talk.